On Cracker Island it was born, to the collective of the dawn. They were planting seeds at night, to grow a made-up paradise, where the truth was not attuned, and its sadness I consumed into my formats every day. In the end I had to pay. In the end I had to pay. In the end I had to pay. Nothing more to say. They taught themselves to be a cult. They didn't know as many strategies. They taught themselves to be a cult. They didn't know as many strategies. On Cracker Island it was raised by the collective from the grave. It only came out at night. Stop me, oh, 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 stop me. Stop me if you think that you heard this one before. Stop me, oh, 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 stop me. Stop me if you think that you heard this one before. 'Cause nothing's changed, I still love you. Oh, I still love you. Only slightly less than I used to, my love. I was delayed, I was waiting. An emergency stop. I saw the last 10 seconds of life. I crashed down on the crossbar, and the pain was enough to make a shot. Ball bullets reflect and plan the mass murder. Yeah, who said I lied to her? Who said I lied? 'Cause I never. Who said I lied? Because I never.
Good morning, everyone. Just a little bit of information. There are lots of empty seats in the middle of the stalls, so please do shuffle along and ensure you're able to grab a merchandise bag. So we want that middle section to be really full, so shuffle along, get your merch bag, and make sure it looks really lovely for our presenters up on stage. We'll be starting shortly.
So I drank what it became for. And when I fell on the floor, I drank more. Stop me, oh, 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 stop me. Stop me if you think that you've heard this one before. Stop me, oh, I said stop me. Stop me if you think that you've heard this one before. 'Cause nothing's changed, I still love you. Oh, I still love you. Only slightly less than I used to, my love. Set me free, why don't you? Get out my life, why don't you? 'Cause you don't really love me, no. You just keep me hanging on. Set me free, why don't you, girl? Get out my life, why don't you, girl? 'Cause you don't really love me, no. You just keep me hanging on.
Welcome to the 2025 Kaluza conference here in Bristol. Please put your hands together for Kaluza's very own disruptive rock star, Chief of Staff Mary Nixon-Keener.
You gotta roll with it, you gotta take it time, you gotta say what you say.
Kaluza, you beauties. Look at this crowd. Now, I know many of us couldn't get Oasis tickets, but I only want to be here now. You're going to need to be an Oasis fan for the whole thing here for this. Because I feel like a rock and roll star. Do you know what I mean? Oh, yes. Now, Kaluza, let's just get warmed up. We've had some caffeine. Can I get a little bit of noise for the 2025 Kaluza conference? Ooh, that was good. That was great. Okay, that was very good. I thought people would be a bit self-conscious. I'm a bit scared about how loud it's going to get. That's great. We had to do a bit of housekeeping. No mops required. I'm going to consult my lovely action list because not even the Chief of Staff escapes an action from the Chief of Staff. So, read from printed list. Okay, no fire alarm tests are scheduled today. So if you hear the alarm, please proceed calmly to your nearest exits. The muster point is located outside Bamalan on Colson Street, which, according to Liam Chambers via the Kaluza conference Slack channel, has a lovely rooftop bar. So if we lose you, we know where you are. We will come and get you. In all the talks, don't be shy. As we just said, please try and fill the seats in the middle, make a friend, and support the presenters and your MCs with your lovely smelly faces. There's quite a bit of Slido and QR code action throughout the sessions. So you are welcome to keep your phones on you, but please put them on silent. Don't be that person. Share your photos and favorite moments from the day in the Kaluza Conference 2025 Slack channel, aforementioned, with bar recommendations and other work things. We have some super dedicated Kaluzans, including those that want to celebrate their birthday with us today. One of those is Tom Clark. If you see him, please sing happy birthday loudly and we'll all join in. Also, happy birthday to Ellis Goodman yesterday, and it was MJ's birthday the day before. They didn't know this was in here, but I just thought I'd do a bit of public shaming. So there we go. Happy birthday to them. Admin sorted. We're going to get energized, okay? You were great at the beginning, but we're caffeinated. The sun is shining, so we're going to get really noisy. It's audience participation time. Ugh. Please participate, because if you don't leave me hanging, I'll just collapse and we'll have to be pulled off the stage. So it's easy. It's a little call and response, okay? So when I say A, you say up. A. When I say A, you say I. A. Lovely, that was good. Some might say we're warmed up. So let's have a look what's ahead today. So this morning's sessions, we're going to kick the conference off with the keynote talk from our amazing CEO, Mel Gander, along with your fabulous Chief Product Officer, Neil Gulhar. Following that, your CCO, Travers, will be hosting a chat with a very special guest. I don't want to steal the thunder, so we'll say that in a little bit. Across the rest of the day and the rest of the rooms, please be sure to keep the noise and the energy high, because we've got some amazing SLT hosts. They'll be emceeing in the other rooms. After lunch, Hugh will be taking over emceeing here in Beacon Hall. Hopefully I cast no shadow. The wonderful Evie is leading the show in Western Stage. She's electric. Gwyn, who is married with children, the Oasis puns, getting a bit tenuous, really now. You've got to be deep cuts. We'll be lifting up in Lantern Hall. So I think it's nearly time to get started. 2 final bits of Kaluza participation. Okay, firstly, if you are safe and able to do so, please could I ask that you turn and look to the back of the hall. Hopefully the lights will come up in a moment and you can see it. And we're going to look at, there's a projector on the back wall, and you're going to look at that, and slightly above it, there's a camera, and behind that camera, it's Australia. So everybody give them a wave and shout, "G'day, g'day." Oh, that's amazing. Thank you, everybody. Now, oh, look, I can see you all now. Hey. And thank you for coming into the middle. Okay, now, turning back towards the stage. Great start, everybody. But on 3, let's raise the roof. We're going to go supersonic with a massive Kaluza cheer to open the 25 conference. So just let it loose. No self-conscious, absolutely not. You're going to open the conference, okay. On 3, 1, 2, 3. Yes. Yes, there we go. I love it, love it, love it. Okay, I think that's a fantastic start. Amazing work. It's official. You've only gone and done it. You've started the conference.
You want a revolution? Well, you know, we all want
Good morning. Hello, Kaluza, and welcome to our fourth Kaluza conference. Oh, we've got a slight technical issue. Sorry, I'll be right back. My notes aren't coming up. It should be working. My notes aren't coming up. No notes. Oh, she's not got any notes.
Been. Hey. Okay. There's about 20 of you in this audience. They've got some things that you're overdue on. So we could do a bit of, should we just do that? Should we just work through like the to-do list as a collective and just stare at people? I could literally just do that now. We'll just do a little bit more audience participation. Let's just do that. Right, everybody, sorry, people doing the lights. Can we get the lights up a little bit so that we can all, there we go. Can I get everybody standing up a little bit, please? I'll say stand up a little bit. If you can, if you're able and safe to do so, please. Let's do it again. When I say A, you say up. Ready? A. When I say A, you say I. Oh. Hang on. That worked, did it? I'm broken. Right, try again. When you start, Mary. When I say A, you say I. A. We're going to be doing that for about 20 minutes. So I think well done on that one. Right, you can sit back down now. That was great. We're all good. So I began my Kaluza journey. And anybody that doesn't EGL. I was also on holiday in Greece recently.
Can we get your note? Your patience, everyone. We will be back with you shortly. Please stay in your seats, have those Kaluza conversations you've been wanting to have, and we'll be back with you very shortly. Thank you.
I just came to get my laptop. But I'm feeling good. See you in a minute.
everyone. Anything to get more time with Mary on stage. Thank you, Mary, for filling that gap. And we are now all back up and running. So once again, good morning. Hello, Kaluza, and welcome to our 4th Kaluza conference and our first ever truly international event being live streamed across the world. So, for those of you who are at our last conference and are wondering where has the last year gone, well, it was actually only 10 months since the last conference when we were all together. And what a 10 months those have been. So please, can we start with everyone giving yourselves a huge round of applause for everything you have achieved since we last came together. And there we all were, back in September 2024. And it really felt like a watershed moment for Kaluza, just after the signing of AGL. We were stepping into a new emerging world of opportunity. And it makes me think of the point at the start of a roller coaster before it tips over the edge. The moment when you're waiting at the crest of that first drop, anticipating the ride about to come, knowing it will start imminently, but not quite knowing the exact moment when gravity would take hold and momentum would kick in. So, in September last year, we were on the climb up that first hill of the ride, feeling the carriage ratcheting up, that clank, clank, clank of every step. We were building on the AGL momentum. We contracted with Eneco for their discovery work. We then signed Shell, and then bought on Beige. We were teetering at the top. And with NG, we're suddenly in. We've tipped over that crest, and we're accelerating into the ride as gravity takes hold. But before we talk about our own ride and what's ahead, let's spend some time looking beyond Kaluza. The world around us is changing at pace. From politics to weather patterns, it seems that every day we're experiencing the unpredictable, kind of like today, and the unprecedented. And in an increasingly interconnected global system, the implications of this are far-reaching, and many are interwoven into the energy space. So, if I'm the leader of an energy business in Europe, how do I see the world? Well, I recently spent some time with energy leaders from across Europe, and it was fascinating to see world events through their perspective. And let's take a bit of time to look back at some of the events that we've seen so far this year. First, let's go back to the start of the year. It's the 1st of January 2025. The transit of gas across Ukraine has stopped. A big step forward in Europe, reducing its dependence on Russian energy. Europe has even more changes to make to reach its aim of a complete phase-out of Russian oil, gas, and nuclear energy. But it is progressing. So it's already dropped from 45% of total gas demand being fulfilled by Russian imports in 2021 to 19% in 2024, with a target of 0 by the end of 2027. But this shift is coming at a cost. Alternative supplies are in high demand, which is pushing up the price of gas in Europe, which in turn is applying upward pressure to electricity prices, given that 20% of European electricity still comes from gas generation. This comes at a time when Europe's energy consumers are already paying some of the highest energy prices in the world. This chart shows the price per kilowatt hour for household electricity across the world's largest markets in March this year. So on the left hand, you can see Ireland is paying the highest prices, followed by Italy. The UK is in 5th. The US is about halfway, under 50% of the cost that the UK pays. And then we have India and China, and then Russia at the low end. You can see quite the differential depending on where you live. And all of this is especially relevant at a time when a recent EY study that covered 21 global markets from the UK, the US, to Brazil and much of Europe. It showed 67% of households would struggle to absorb a 10% increase in their energy bills, leading to increasing pressure on those energy leaders in Europe to protect their consumers from these upward price pressures. And then this happened in April. That's fine. In April, Donald Trump announced sweeping reciprocal tariffs on most imports into the US. This is just one example of how nations globally are beginning to put up trade barriers to protect their own markets. To continue to export goods to the US market, countries have to reduce their cost of goods to remain competitive, especially when considering they're competing with large powerhouses like China and India for export markets, and also for the business of their own internal customers. So, how does this link to energy? I think we might have. Sorry, I think we might have another slight technical issue. Okay. So how does this link to the price of energy? Well, if you think about the previous slide and the cost differential across all of those markets, the businesses within those markets need to be able to compete. But when there's such vast differences in the cost of the energy that they're paying to create their goods, that can be everything from creating or manufacturing electric vehicles right through to microchips. It's clear that there's a difference in their ability to be able to compete. And so energy businesses across Europe and their leaders are under increasing pressure from businesses within their markets and also their governments to further reduce prices to enable them to stay competitive. And then this happened later in April that year, something that was unforeseen and unprecedented. Two markets, two whole countries, Spain and Portugal, went for almost 12 hours without power. So there was a considerable impact on their infrastructure. Thank you. So we're yet to fully understand what happened in Spain and Portugal, but an almost unprecedented event happened. So almost nearly 12 hours of full power loss across two countries. Communications went down, shops ran out of basic supplies, those that could still take payments. Transport infrastructure failed, trains stopped mid-journey, and traffic lights ceased to operate. The cost to the Spanish economy is estimated to be over 1.6 billion euro. So our system is under increasing strain, and it's getting more complex to manage. Demand is set to increase, and unpredictability will further drive volatility as we shift to more renewables. Balancing these systems is critical. And it's not just managing the energy system we have today. Energy leaders need to consider what's coming next. Okay, there. I would highly recommend a read of this MIT Technology Review article that attempts to calculate the energy footprint of AI. It's part of a broader series on energy usage. There's so much complexity in determining the energy consumption and demand related from AI, right from the type of models that are used to the use case itself, from generating a simple image to generating a high-resolution video. So using the consumption data they gathered, the authors compiled an estimate to look at the daily AI consumption of someone with a habit of leaning on generative models. So they looked at what the energy it would take to ask 15 questions, 10 attempts at generating an AI image, and then 3 tries at making an Instagram-ready 5-second video. So all of that would use 2.9 kilowatt hours of electricity. And that is the equivalent of running a microwave for 3.5 hours. So MIT predicts that for the US alone, between 2024 and 2028, the share of electricity going to data centers may triple from its current 4.4% to 12%. Bloomberg New Energy Finance predicts data centers will account for almost 10% of energy consumption in 2050. And not only is AI changing the demand for energy, the drive to build more data centers is starting to shape everything from grid strategy to the potential generation mix. I asked ChatGPT, where should a data center be located? And this is its helpful view that it created to answer that question. So it's great to see that it's clearly promoting renewable energy. However, the intermittency of renewables is actually quite challenging when thinking about locating where to locate a data center, because they need a guaranteed, firm, or constant supply of power. Now, looking at the UK, Prime Minister has announced a new AI Energy Council to work on innovative energy solutions, including small modular reactors. So they're small nuclear generators that allow a lot of power to go to remote areas to enable the build of additional data centers. And that's before we consider grid resiliency and the queues forming for new grid connections and factoring those in. So it's no wonder the AI giants are knocking on the doors of energy leaders across the world to work out where to build their energy centers and how to power them. And they're also asking how to reduce the cost of that power. So if we go back to global competitiveness, the cost of energy in Ireland is over 7 times the cost of energy in Russia. So the cost of leading AI development on a global stage is vastly different depending on the market that you're operating within. And so all of this really brings to life one of the most pressing problems globally, the energy trilemma. So how to balance security with sustainability and the cost to consumers. So energy security, it's not just about reliable sources of generation or sourcing gas from political allies, but it's about resilient grids for the transmission and distribution of power, reliable grids at the time of increasing demand and decentralized generation. Energy sustainability, so that's moving to renewable energy at a time of increasing demand, as we electrify transport, homes, and increasingly digitize our lives. And the cost of energy is not just the cost to consumers and businesses, but the cost of the transition as well. And it isn't just that direct cost, it's also the indirect impact that energy prices have on the cost of goods and the competitiveness of markets and industries. And this isn't just a European challenge, it's truly global. Here is the World Energy Council's assessment of transition readiness across the world. There's so much interesting data to call out here, but a few points to call out. If you look at the Middle East, energy equity is really high due to a potential plentiful supply of low-cost energy. But their high fossil fuel focus results in limited traction on renewables. The US are actually up there as one of the most advanced markets. So remember, this assessment was in 2024. So it's going to be interesting to see how the focus on sustainability changes over the coming years and whether security and price become the sole drivers of policy. And overall, those markets in dark orange, so the US, Australia, Japan, Europe, they're the most progressed through the transition, and they clearly map to the markets we're gaining traction in. Our solutions are in high demand in places that are accelerating their transitions and grappling with the resulting trade-offs. So, how do energy leaders make decisions in the face of so much uncertainty and change? Historically, energy management was a 10 to 15-year cycle of change and investment. So build a power station, invest in networks, buy a new system. Decisions were slow. Change was managed through long-term program plans. It's really interesting. A friend of mine is a program manager in a nuclear decommissioning program. Their program plan includes dates that are far beyond the lifetime of anyone working on that program. So that's how energy businesses have previously operated, and we're seeing a shift in the pace. They've taken the energy crisis as a catalyst for change and are learning how to operate in increasingly uncertain, unpredictable environments. They're also recognizing the capabilities that their businesses will need to thrive in a fast-paced world and are rebuilding their businesses around these. So, what does all of this mean for Kaluza? Well, the world of opportunity we discussed being on the cusp of back in September is even bigger, and it's accelerating. And it also means that our mission is more relevant than ever. We set out with a bold ambition to build the platform accelerating a sustainable, affordable, and resilient energy transition. So that means driving renewable energy adoption and decarbonising homes. It also means supporting the balancing of the system, and also how we make energy more affordable, accessible, and understood by all consumers. So, to share more about how Kaluza and our platform and our products enable this, I'm going to hand over to Neil.
So I've been coached today that with the little clicker snafu that we've had, that I have to stick to my allotted time. And I was also told this morning that each of the panels on the stage are on a pulley system, on a pressurized pulley system. So if I go over my allotted time, you might just see me disappear and go underneath the stage. So I'm going to try to stick to time. With that, let's get started. So some of the words that are on the screen right now: sustainability, affordability, resilience. These are not themes that are unique to Kaluza and our mission. In fact, if we look at the mission statement of some of our partners, let's start with NG. You see the same themes pop up in retailer mission statements. But these are not just words on a wall at NG. They're putting real effort behind this. Let me give you an example. They have reformed their entire strategy around 3 pillars. First one being around infrastructure, around energy management and supply, and the third pillar being renewables and flexibility. They're spending 20 billion euros just over the next few years, and 75% of that 20 billion euros is going into that third pillar, renewables and flexible demand. Not just words on the walls of NG. Let's look at a different retailer. This is one that I think we're quite familiar with, right? AGL. You see the same themes pop up at AGL. But not just words for them either. They've committed to retiring all of their coal-fired power plants 10 years sooner than they had previously committed to doing by 2035. The next big opportunity in Australia is around battery storage. And AGL have a goal that by 2027, they're going to have 1.6 gigawatts of battery storage that will be able to trade on the markets as a VPP, virtual power plant. Not just words on the walls of AGL. They're putting real investment behind it. And I could do this all day. We could go through retailer across the world and show you their mission statements. But let's dig a little bit deeper. What is it that we need to do in working with our retail partners to achieve the mission that we have and the mission that they have? I like to think about it as a hierarchy. And the foundation of that hierarchy is affordable and frictionless energy. Because if you can't do that for consumers, nothing else matters as you go up the pyramid. So we have to do this, and we have to do this well. And that seems like by now, retailers should have figured that out, right? How to make things frictionless, how to make them completely digital, how to take cost out of their system. But again, once you peel the onion back, it's a little bit harder than it seems on the surface. And I'll give you an example from OVO from a few years back. We had a joint initiative with OVO where we wanted to take a look at data from our platform, from OVO's CRM platform, and from OVO's call center platform, which was capturing all the interaction data. And the goal was, let's pull together all of this data and let's see where are the opportunities in the business to take friction out of the consumer experience and to take cost out of the business. Just that effort of mashing up that data across the different systems was so costly and it was so burdensome that we ended up dropping that initiative. We still did initiatives with OVO to remove costs out of the business, but it wasn't based on the data that we wanted it to be based on. And that is emblematic at every retailer today. What's getting in the way is siloed systems and siloed data. That's what we can help them with. Because if you don't have all of your data converged and unified and rationalized, you can't actually spot where are the opportunities to take costs out of the business and to take friction out of the consumer experience. Let's go up the pyramid. Adoption of new products and services. This is key, right? If we can't get consumers to adopt new things like a smart thermostat or a battery or solar panels or an EV charger that's able to be controlled, then we won't be able to actually go on the energy transition that we all want to go on. Shell Energy is a good example of that. Shell is working with us because of this value prop. They're not working with us because we're a better billing system. I want to be really clear about that. They're working with us because they want to sell more batteries to customers in Australia. It's a well-known fact by now that 1 in 3 homeowners in Australia already have solar. But of those 1 in 3 customers, only 1 in 20 have a battery attached to that system. And in a place like Australia, that's islanded, literally, right? But then if you were to look at a map of Australia, there's little pockets of islands within Australia. Storage is the big key. And so this is the big opportunity for Shell and other Australian retailers is to attach batteries onto solar installations or to sell battery and solar together. That's why we're working on the new commerce product with Shell. Let's go up the pyramid. So we've taken friction out of the consumer experience. We've sold clean energy products to consumers, and now we want to leverage all of that to optimize energy demand and energy load. That's what we're working with the Japanese retailer Loop. Now, I don't read Japanese, so I'm going to translate this for you. This is what Google Translate says is the translation of this. Creating demand for renewable energy and aiming to realize an energy-free society. I don't think they literally mean energy-free society, because they'd be out of business. But they're pointing to things like VPPs, virtual power plants. So taking all the friction out of the consumer needing to think about energy and making that frictionless. But this is where a lot of the future value is going to be. And we're already seeing that with reform after reform in every market. In Japan, they reformed their balancing market and their capacity market last year, and that has unlocked massive growth for Flex in Japan. In fact, some analysts are predicting 25% year-over-year increase in the value of Flex between now and 2030. Huge opportunity in Japan and other regions as well. Okay, so this pyramid, or hierarchy of needs for energy retailers, the fact is that a lot of the effort, when we look backward, when we go backward from today, a lot of the effort in trying to improve customer lifetime value has been spent on the foundation of the pyramid, taking cost out of the business, cost to serve. That's what it's been about. But we're starting to see that change. And we see it every day. With every retailer we talk to, they're not talking about just the foundational element of the pyramid. They're talking about how do I diversify my product mix? How do I increase my energy gross margin? How do I leverage all these different assets I have and be able to squeeze more margin out of the customers? Because that matters. It's not just about having a mission that's worthy and just. It's about also it has to make economic sense for the retailers at the same time, or it won't happen. And so when we look at the model for customer lifetime value, this is a model that we developed jointly with OVO, and you play with some of the toggles in that model and you start adding up. What's the value of an EV customer to a retailer? In the UK, just from not even vehicle to grid, just being able to manage an EV, over the next 5 years, that's going to be worth £150 per year additional for a customer who has an EV versus who doesn't. That's true in every market. But then you add solar, you add storage on top of that, and you see that the value is really going to be in controlling those kinds of assets. And so in 5 years, what you'll see is that this pyramid is going to start to invert, where really the value is going to be at the top of the pyramid, right? Now, I don't know if these numbers are going to end up being accurate, perfectly accurate like this or not, but we are seeing this trend at every single retailer that we talk to. Okay, so now we've talked about what the needs of the retailers are. How do we as Kaluza deliver on that? You're going to hear me talk today a lot about data. That underpins our strategy. Because if you take a step back and you think about what is it that we're trying to all do here as an industry, right? We're trying to optimize energy from the moment that it's generated and it goes through the poles, the wires, the pipelines, right? It's delivered to a consumer through a meter, and then it's used by something, whether that's something in your kitchen or whether it's your electric vehicle, and bidirectional as well for customers that are producing more solar. It's being able to measure that at every point and figure out what's the value at every point in that value chain and optimize it so we can get the cheapest unit of energy to the customer, the cleanest unit of energy, and optimize the entire system in a frictionless way for the consumer. That's why our entire strategy is pinned on gathering that data across the energy value chain. So that leads to this natural question of, well, then why don't we just become a data platform? That is the end goal, for us to become a data platform and to be able to open that data up for third parties who can build applications around it. But we need to start with our own applications and delivering value first as a means to capture that data. And there's 4 solutions that we have that sit around this core data. First, billing and payments, otherwise known as meter to cash for some of us that have been in the industry for a while. It's a software segment called CIS. This is a really difficult category to differentiate in, if I'm being honest with you. If you were to do a feature comparison of Kaluza versus Kraken versus SAP versus Oracle, we're all kind of doing the same thing, right? Very hard to differentiate on just features. The real pain point in this space is the total cost of ownership. It's taking a system off the shelf, being able to localize it at an effective price. Historically, when there was a replatforming, it could cost hundreds and hundreds of millions of pounds to localize a system. And so as we build out our bill and pay system, what we are thinking about is how do we globalize that in a way that then makes it cheaper to localize market by market and a way to customize that client by client. And we'll get into that topic a little bit later. That is then augmented by our customer care solution. So this is effectively parts of what a CRM would do, right? And it's expanding on what we've built with Kaluza Agent Experience. Augmenting it with AI, with call center as a service, augmenting it with things like complex case management, and then also surfacing all of that data to the end consumer. Now, it used to be that you'd have to go buy a Salesforce, and you'd have to go buy a CIS system, and then you'd have to do an integration project to stitch all that together. Again, very, very costly and siloed data is what the result of that was. This is an area that I'm really excited about investing in, and we'll be doing some really interesting things with new clients moving forward. Third, our commerce product. So this is that middle part of that hierarchy, right? Product diversification, upselling new bundles, having add-ons, and really enabling retailers to have the tools to be able to do that quickly. For Shell, I used that example earlier, it takes them 8 weeks to launch a new tariff, just a tariff. I'm not talking about a tariff plus an add-on plus an EV charger, just a tariff, 8 weeks to launch a tariff. We should be able to do that in 5 days or less. We're building the tools for Shell in the first instance to be able to do that in 5 days and not 8 weeks. And then the top of the pyramid, which is our energy optimization, also known as Flex. Now we're going to build on the lead that we have with electric vehicles, and we're going to expand into new device categories. I'm really excited to tell you what we're about to do with AGL in that space. So let's take a whistle-stop tour and see what are some of the recent investments and products that we're building actively in each of these 5 areas, the 4 solution areas and data intelligence. Let's start with billing and payments. So for the last few months, we've been working with OVO on a segment of customers that has often been neglected. These are low-income customers who are tight on finances, and they need to really, really manage their money. Energy makes up a big portion of their total expenditure. And this, again, this has been a neglected cohort. In fact, they had a completely separate app experience for OVO. It wasn't, you wouldn't go download the OVO app, you'd have to go download a completely separate app. And to be quite frank, it was not a great experience. In fact, they would have over 5,000 failures every single month of people who were trying to top up. And then those customers were stuck, right? Because if you can't top up, if you're a pay-as-you-go customer and you can't top up, you're stuck. And what does that lead to? It leads to a call into the call center. So customer's losing, OVO's losing because the customer's calling in and complaining about it. In fact, 26% of calls, complaints that came into OVO were related to this cohort of customers that were on pay-as-you-go. So what we've been doing is redesigning the system, making sure top-ups are much more predictable and they're actually transacted so customers can top up easily, and that will lead to a reduction in the call volume that comes in and the complaint that comes in for these customers. If we can't solve these kinds of issues, we have no hope of going on the energy transition for this cohort of customers, right? We have to make it easy. Really cool product that we are launching with OVO. All right, let's go around the horn. Customer care. So this is where we're taking what's built with Kaluza Agent Experience, and what you're seeing here is our partnership with AWS and configuring their customer care as a service product and embedding that into the Kaluza Agent Experience. And what you'll see here is that the consumer says something about a heat pump installation. And immediately, Kaluza Agent Experience then is popping up the right next best action or recommended action right within the agent's purview on the agent experience. Then, once the call is over, everything is automatically summarized, and even sentiment is captured directly. Now, you just think about that data we've captured, right? The call summary, the sentiment, the fact that this customer is interested in a heat pump installation, all of that captured by AI and embedded into the Kaluza Agent Experience. That's why I'm excited about this partnership with AWS. It's taking what has historically been a very human-centric approach, which we need to stick to as an industry. We're not going to move to all AI for everything, right? But it's really empowering the human, leveraging AI side by side in a way that's quite seamless. Really, really, really cool investment that we're making in customer care. Our commerce product, also building this out for the first time this year, and development on this has just broken ground. So again, taking that 8 weeks down to 5 business days to launch a new product or service. And instead of me talking about it, our product and our marketing teams have put together a quick video. I think that does a good job of explaining what this is and what it solves for.
But then in 2025, everything began to change. We had just re-platformed with Kaluza, and we took the full commerce product area. Suddenly, we became much more agile. The product catalog became our central hub. We could rapidly create and update all our offers. With it came new and flexible options, which consistently boosted our sales. We could be highly targeted in specifying which cohorts could sign up for an offer. We could move fast, but we could do so responsibly, upholding our commitment to quality. Our sales experience became highly effective across all channels. Our post-purchase experience was transformed, putting us in control and boosting customer satisfaction. Once live, we could quickly react to the market as needed. We were impressed, but Kaluza were just getting started. The real revolution began with the data that Kaluza aggregates from their global retail clients, our org, and third parties. And with this data and intelligence, we got actionable recommendations. The result? Nothing short of transformational.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I love that video ended with data. Because again, yes, it's about delivering value for the customer through these new applications, these new tools, these new products. But at the end of the day, what's really important, and this needs to be part of every single product strategy we have, is how is the data that's being generated by that product feeding into our data intelligence layer? Let's move to the third prong, energy optimization. So I mentioned earlier, we're moving beyond EVs, and this is giving you a quick glimpse of how we're doing that. We're doing that in Australia, because it is the #1 place for going beyond EVs, because there's so much solar and there's so much potential for storage. So we're breaking ground with AGL and working on HEMS, Home Energy Management System. What this really means is we're going to be combining optimization, not just for EVs, as we've done a really good job historically, but then being able to optimize battery and solar all together through one seamless consumer experience. At first, that consumer experience is going to be separate because we want to test it, we want to learn from it, and then over time, that experience will be merged into a singular consumer experience for anybody who wants it through a single app. Now, the potential here is huge, right? You think about most consumers, they don't have the wherewithal or really the desire to figure out how to control all this stuff and optimize it to save the most money or to be the cleanest. Yes, early adopters will do that, but most consumers, they're not going to program their inverter and their battery and their EV to sort out what is the best way for me to consume or dispatch energy from my home. When do I take the generation that's created by my solar and store it versus when do I use it to power my EV? When do I take the excess energy that I have and push it back onto the grid when prices perhaps are the highest so I can save the most amount of money? So bringing all of this together is a huge benefit for consumers, but it also lets AGL and other retailers get more margin out of their book. Again, win, win, win. Win for the consumer, win for the retailer, win for the environment. Okay, so those are our 4 solution areas. And in fact, while it may seem obvious to some folks who sort of have been working on this for a long time in terms of building these products out, we've spent the better part of 2 years going to market and testing, is this the right platform to be offering to retailers? Are we working on the right things? And that will continue to evolve, but I'm more confident than I've ever been before that those are the 4 solution areas that we need to continue to invest in as we move forward. But underpinned by data. And we are just scratching the surface on data. We're feeding all of the data from these products into a central lakehouse, and we are starting to realize what the benefits of that data are. In fact, Robin has actually recorded a video for us to show what the potential is. And again, this is just scratching the surface. I'll talk through it because some of the text might be a little bit small on the screen. So we're in a tool here, and instead of doing the kind of old school thing of calling up an analyst and saying, hey, I need a report because I want to see how many live supplies are on the system, we shouldn't have to do it that way anymore. You should just be able to talk to the platform in the same way that you use Gemini or ChatGPT. And that's what's going on here. Robin is asking the system, how many live supplies do I have? The system responds. Then Robin's going to say, I want to actually look at this through a different slice and I want to create a table. And you see that the table gets created. Okay, I'm seeing some interesting patterns in the data here. I want to create a visualization from this data and see what else I can derive from the data in this table. And you'll see here in just a moment that the visualization will be created just like that. Again, this is just scratching the surface, right? If you play this forward a year or 2 years, you can start seeing how we can put the power of data into the hand of analysts at retailers, managers, executives, and they shouldn't have to spend tens of millions of pounds to create these different reports. They should just be able to interact with Kaluza by talking in human language form. Beyond that, it's using that data for each product manager, for each engineer at Kaluza to play with the data, for everybody at Kaluza to play with the data and see where's the next opportunity to optimize the entire energy system. So this is an area that we're also going to be investing in. Now, as you all know, we are a platform that is built for mass market customers. What I mean by that is residential and SME customers, small and medium-sized businesses. Earlier this year, we made an acquisition of Beige, and their products are represented by what they call the zoo. So those are the animals of the zoo. My favorite animal is the moose, and I think there's a session on that later that Jesse is having. In fact, a lot of the products that I just showed you, there's sessions happening today on. Incorporating this into the platform has a huge benefit because all of the zoo products are centered around C&I, commercial and industrial. And it's a segment that's been out of reach for Kaluza because we've been so focused on residential and SME customers. So we're just starting to work with the Beige team to sort out how do we take these amazing products that you have and incorporate them into the platform. So hopefully when I'm standing here next year, I'll have more to say about that, but we are just, again, breaking ground on how do we take the Moose products and incorporate them into the platform so we're an end-to-end platform for every consumer type. There's not a lot of platforms that can do that at a low cost and effective way in the market, and it will be a huge differentiator for us. So hopefully that gives you an idea of the platform that we're building, the problems that it solves across the hierarchy of needs, the value that it's going to deliver in terms of customer lifetime value, and ultimately, how it helps us achieve the mission.
So, achieving our mission takes 2 ingredients. It takes impact, as Neil has just covered, and it also takes scale. So, we've talked about impact, so let's touch on scale. So, I'd like to share a few figures. So, okay, I think we're back. So, I'd like to share a few numbers with you. So, let's start with the UK. So, working with OVO, we currently support 12% of households in the UK. Then, if we move on to Australia, with Shell, with AGL, and with ENGIE, we would then be supporting almost 30% of households in the Australian market, so nearly 1 in 3. Then, if we move on to France, with ENGIE, we'd be supporting 28% of households in the French market, so that's just over 1 in 4. Then if we carry on, if we were to secure both an Echo and ENGIE in the Netherlands and in Belgium, then we're reaching the point where we'll be supporting over half of the households in some markets. This is the reach we start to build. Just think about that amplified around the world. And this brings us up to 30 million metres contracted, which is a great start towards our target of 100 million metres. And we're now engaging with some of the largest energy businesses across the world. They all know that they need to change their technology solutions in order to stay relevant, and they all see Kaluza's potential to transform their businesses. Now, growth isn't necessarily something that's a given. We need to keep innovating, and we need to keep investing in our solutions to stay relevant. But we are very well positioned to keep building our market share if we keep investing in our products and our people. So, with our impact and our reach building towards our mission, the big question I think we're all asking is, how do we fulfill that potential? Well, it starts with a plan. So we're halfway through our 3-year plan, so 2024 to 2026. So it's a great opportunity to step back and consider the progress that we've made. So what have we achieved so far and what's left to do? So starting with go-to-market, we've built a pipeline of future clients. It's an area where we've seen a significant step change in. Since signing AGL, our pipeline has grown 4-fold, and we continue to field new inquiries every week. But not all opportunities are equal. We need to be really targeted and strategic about the clients that we take on over the next few years. To attract and to land them, we need to continue to build on Kaluza awareness and make sure that what we stand for, what we offer, and how we're different from our competitors is clearer than ever. So, on to Flex Value. We've made really strong progress with letters of intent signed with Loop and Kyushu in Japan, and Neil's also covered the HEM solutions that we're co-developing with AGL. OVO charge anytime volumes continue to be over 30,000 vehicles, really demonstrating our strength in managed charging propositions. Over the next year, we need to ensure that we're building towards a globally repeatable core product to enable further scale Flex. Next, as Neil has shared, we have now locked in the scope of our platform. After spending the last few years determining what's in and what's out, we finally found the edges. And we're making headway in deploying new capabilities in the sales and service space with Shell and with ENGIE as the first clients taking on these new capabilities. Next up is C&I, boosted by the beige team now being on board. Plus, we also need to define how we develop data and insight solutions to add even more value over the coming years. Delivering for OVO. It's really interesting. When we last came together in September, at that point we were piloting, organising ourselves around value streams. And since then, the OVO value stream has shown just how much can be achieved with a team focused on unlocking value, from reducing on builds through to improving the home moves experience. And over the next 12 months, the real value driver will be determining how we bring OVO onto the global platform so that they see the benefits of the improvements that we're investing in. And onto AGL and the global platform. When we set out our 3-year plan, we expected to be bringing on more clients over that period, and that through the AGL development, we would be building out the foundation of a global-ready solution. But with Engie and Shell coming on board, the need to build a global core product is more critical than ever. To deep dive into this pillar, I'll hand back to Neil.
So when we put this 3-year plan together, we joined these 2 goals together, just like Mel said. So we're going to deliver for AGL, and we're going to deliver with some first principles in mind. One of those first principles is delivering in these 3 layers. A global layer, which is configurable. It's pertinent for every retailer in the world. You can spin it up very quickly. Then you've got the localization layer, which is unique to a locale. Now, a locale could be a country, but within a country, you can have multiple states. Like in Australia, there's 5 different states, so there's different layers of locales. And then you've got your client-specific configurations and your client-specific extensions that we want to build out. But I bet if you were to go around the teams and you were to ask them, have you been building with these first principles? The real answer that you would get is that we are prioritizing AGL delivery over some of these global first principles. And we understood that. We knew that client delivery was going to be more important than delivering for a global platform. And besides, at that point, we didn't really have any business beyond AGL. And so this was the plan as it was. We were going to start building the second generation of our platform. We have some key milestones coming up later this year where we get to run the new billing capability in shadow mode, and we get to see how performant is it. And then ultimately, this was leading up to a big milestone next summer for AGL, which is called the foundational release. This was not just the foundational release for AGL, but it was also the starting point for which we were then going to go the last mile to globalize some of the key capability in billing, payments, and some of the other product areas. So we were going to take that time after next summer to do that. But plans change. And in this case, they changed for very good reason and very optimistic reasons. We've won more in the market. We've landed another client in Australia with Shell, and we're on the way with Engie in France and Belgium. Let's see what that looks like on the timeline. So when you layer Shell in top, very similar timeline. In fact, next summer, the same time that we're handing over that foundational release to AGL for testing, for their side of the testing, we'll be actively migrating meters for Shell. In fact, we may end up migrating more meters for Shell before the AGL migration begins. Okay, but let's layer on Engie next. The key milestone is next summer. Still working out the specifics of the exact dates, but very, very similar timeline. Next summer, we'll be migrating 200,000 meters in either Belgium or France at the same time that we're doing that for Shell, at the same time that we're handing over the foundational release for AGL. Next summer is a big moment. It's a really big moment in our history, but the work starts now. The problem with this plan is that it doesn't work. We cannot start globalizing in the second half of next year. Sure, we're building with the first principles as we're building for these clients, but true globalization and having confidence behind building something once and deploying it everywhere, again, not for the entire span of the platform, but even starting in small ways, we cannot wait a whole year to begin that, right? Because otherwise, what's going to happen? We're going to build a platform for AGL, we're going to build a platform for Shell, we're going to build a platform for Engie. That does not work. This business will not work. The fundamentals of this business will not work if that's the path we go down. So instead, starting immediately, and we've been talking through plans for this in recent weeks, we need to pull forward that platform globalization effort. Now, what does that mean? We need to be really realistic about this because there's a lot going on, a lot of client implementations going on. So immediately, we'll be picking out some early candidates to go through what we're calling a GA process, globally available process. We're going to start small because we got to get into the rhythm. So we might start with something like the bill coordinator, which is the module that is orchestrating, pulling in charges, pulling in taxes, figuring out how is that going to be assembled onto the bill. It's a highly abstractable piece of software, highly abstractable service. Or perhaps Ledger is another good place to start, right? The Ledger capability that every retailer needs is roughly the same around the world. Double entry ledger. Of course, it's going to have to be configurable, and there's going to be nuances, and there'll be localization that has to happen on top of it, but that core Ledger capability is a good place, another good place to start. So we'll be picking some early candidates. I'm not sure if it's going to be billing coordinator and Ledger. Those are just examples. And we're going to start going through a more formal globalization effort, starting very soon. Now, when I first looked at this plan just a few weeks ago, there's been a team that's working on a much more detailed version than this pretty slide. I had a pit in my stomach. That was my first reaction. I was like, oh, crap. I'll say crap. Oh, crap. How are we going to do this? This is not yet another problem with the slides. There's a story behind this. This is the first operating system I used, and it's MS-DOS. I think most people know the story of Microsoft, the general story of Microsoft, right? They were the first operating system on the IBM. Ultimately, that became Windows, and it spurred what could be the first software platform over time. It was the first of an era, right? It was a platform. Windows was a platform, and then third-party developers came on, and they developed a whole bunch of applications that worked with Windows, and they were off and running. MS-DOS was the start of that. That's the story that most of us know. But actually, there's another story that's not that well known. And it starts in the winter of 1980. And IBM was launching their big PC the very next year, and they went to Bill Gates and Steve Ballmer, two of the original founders of Microsoft. In fact, Microsoft wasn't even called Microsoft in 1980. It was called something else. And IBM said, hey, Bill and Steve, you guys are really good software developers. We're in a little bit of a bind. We're launching this PC next year, and we need an operating system. Can you develop it for us? And Bill Gates said, no, not possible. You're launching in August of 1981. That only gives us 9 months to do this. Impossible. Can't do it. And it was actually Steve Ballmer. He's the developers. That guy is Steve Ballmer. He definitely had the vision of being a platform. And so Steve is the one who actually convinced Bill to take it on, even though Bill Gates thought it was going to be impossible. He said, look, we've got pieces of this that we've sort of done for Steve Jobs and the Macintosh, and we've got these other bits and pieces. I think we can do it. And lo and behold, as we know now, they did it. They pulled it off in 9 months. They pulled off the impossible. They came up with the first IBM operating system, and they did it end-to-end in 9 months. And this isn't the only story in technology, right? You can go all the way from back then to now, and there's story after story after story of what teams can do when they're given a seemingly impossible task. And so while my first reaction was having a pit in my stomach, it's a good reminder that actually, sometimes when you're given an impossible task, it is absolutely possible to pull it off in 9 months or less. But it's going to require a lot of change, and it's going to require change in terms of people, the way that we invest in our teams. It's going to require process in the way that we develop. Our software is going to require significant enhancement, and it's going to require improvement in our platform architecture, our governance around platform, and the standards that we set for our platform. This is going to be a very multifaceted next year in terms of rolling out all of this change, and it won't be easy. Let's break this down one by one. When it comes to people, what we're seeing right now, so we've done some high-level estimates around everything that we have to do for those multiple clients, for globalizing the platform, and we're going to need at least 160 more people joining Kaluza between now and March of next year. We're also going to have to invest in all of you, the people that are here today that are going to be integral to that. And so there's a significant investment that we're going to need to make over the next 9 to 12 to 18 months to globalize the platform while also localizing in new markets. In fact, that's such a steep challenge, I don't think we can do it alone, and we're going to have to rely on some partners. We work with partners today. We work with Sybage and Cognizant and Akamai and Zardis, but we're also going to be working with new partners such as ThoughtWorks, who will start showing up in a few weeks' time. Now, this makes me really nervous. The whole thing of adding that much, investing that much in new people coming into the business at our level of maturity. That makes me really nervous. But we need to improve some core things as Kaluza. We need to improve things like onboarding. We don't have a formal onboarding program today because if you're bringing in that many people at once, we have to bring those people up to speed in a logical and much more methodical way. Anyway, there's so many things that we have to do when it comes to how we organize and the flying formation and how we create outcomes by team in a much more precise way. Second is around process and improving our product development lifecycle, namely the throughput, because you can't just throw an investment and throw more people at a problem. You have to make sure you have the right processes in place. Now, the good news is when it comes to process, there's a lot that we've been doing over the last year. In fact, this is a slide I couldn't have even presented last year because we weren't even able to present throughput last year because every team was decomposing work in a different way. So we introduced the concept of the hierarchy in terms of how we track work in product and development. In terms of you have a super initiative, which decomposes into initiatives, which decomposes into epics. That sounds very basic, right? Every software company has some methodology around that. The problem was that every team at Kaluza was doing it slightly differently. That then made it impossible to know where the kinks in the development chain, when everybody's doing it differently. And so we spent the better part of the last year, in fact, improving that and getting everybody onto the same methodology of how we decompose work, how we track work, and then we can see, okay, where are the kinks in the chain? Is it because this team's throughput is perhaps too low because they've got too many dependencies? Or is it because discovery is taking too long? Or is it because there's a capacity issue? And there was no way to quantify that. Now we can quantify it down to the team level. What you see here is aggregate number of initiatives by week, and we have improved that over the last 6 months. This is just a 6-month improvement. Now, there's probably a piece of this where we just have better data. So I'm sure throughput has increased. In fact, I know it's increased significantly. Has it doubled? I think some of that is just getting our data sorted, but we'll continue to improve this and see how throughput is tracking. But more importantly, at a team level. So then we can dig in with the teams and say, where are you stuck? Why are you stuck? And be able to solve those problems team by team, team by team. That's going to be so important as we invest more into the business. One element of throughput is discovery. Now, discovery is a tricky one. Is it a good thing or a bad thing to spend more time on discovery? It's both. It depends on the work. So if it's highly regulatory and compliance-driven work, I would argue, actually, you want discovery to be pretty short. So if you think about something like billing gas in a compliant and scalable way in a market, that is largely driven by regulatory and compliance requirements. It hasn't actually changed over the last few decades. There might be some minor regulation that's changing here or there. It hasn't really changed in the last few decades. So for those kinds of initiatives, shortening the discovery time, really, really important. And when you dig into the data, you see that there's some initiatives that are highly regulatory and compliance driven, where discovery is staying open for 90 days, for 120 days. How do we make that shorter? How do we get more quick with that? Then there's other initiatives where, in fact, I don't mind if we spend 3 months on discovery. If it's an area like HEMS, which we talked about earlier, that's an area where you do actually want to slow down and do proper discovery, right? You want to go talk to consumers, you want to go talk to the retailer, you want to do prototypes, you want to present those prototypes to consumers and see how it tests. You want to run different optimization algorithms, and you want to see how they perform. Perfectly fine to spend more time on discovery. But a lot of our work is regulatory and compliance driven. And what you see in the throughput data is that we're taking too much time on discovery for those kinds of initiatives, and we need faster ways to get through discovery so we can start the development work. Just one example of what we need to do as we invest more into the business. Third is platform. So again, the concept of the global, local client layers, we started talking about last year, but we now need to go from a conceptual slide to actually having the right platform standards and having a process for how we take bits of software and make them globally available. This is what that will roughly look like. There's a lot more detail behind this that's going to be shared. It's going to be shared with the entire product and tech org next Tuesday. In fact, we've been sharing a lot of this with the HODs and the PLs over the last few weeks. What it'll look like is we'll identify those early candidates. So I mentioned billing coordinator and ledger as two possible candidates that'll be identified. And then there'll be a series of fitness tests. It's both from a product and functional perspective. So do we have the basic capability that's built out? Do we think from a product perspective that's 70% of what every retailer is going to need? Or are there major feature gaps here? But also the technical, right? Is this service on a standard way of doing configuration? Is it automatically provisionable? Is there a series of regression tests that can be run on it so that it's much more maintainable in the future? How are you going to manage your code across multiple clients for this ledger feature? Those kinds of things. Now, we'll find a lot of gaps as we do those fitness tests, and that's okay, because the whole purpose of doing the fitness test is to say, what do we need to do next in order to make this service applicable to the rest of the globe? So there'll be dedicated focus and teams that will then pull that. So they'll say, okay, we built this initial ledger service for AGL. Instead of distracting the AGL delivery team, they will pull that capability and they will take that next step and take that the next mile. And then they will also work with the NG delivery teams to make sure that the thing that they're now calling globally available was actually globally deployable for the next client, and perhaps even the next client after that. And at some point, then we can say, okay, that ledger service, that is truly now globally available, and any localization team can use that into the future. That's roughly what that is going to look like. But what's really important to understand here is we need to do both things at the same time, deliver for clients as we globalize at the same time. That's going to be a challenging thing to pull off, and we're going to have to create different areas of focus in order to pull that off. That's a lot of change, a lot of new faces, investing in our people, being able to make key changes in our product development lifecycle and software development lifecycle, whole new process for how we take things through this GA process that I just outlined at a high level. That's a lot of change, and change is hard. And we've learned. Last year, we launched value streams, and there was things we should have done differently when we launched value streams. We should have met with the leaders of the organization before it was launched last year. We didn't do that. That was a mistake. I take ownership for that. That was a mistake. And there should have been a much more two-way listening session as we were launching that, because really, what you're trying to do is eliminate how steep that trough is. So what we're going to be doing differently this time, as we launch these changes across people, process, and platform, is have that two-way dialogue and have that two-way communication with the org in much more prescriptive ways. That's already been happening for the last few weeks. So any HOD or people leader in the audience today in product and tech should not be surprised by anything that was on the slide. That was the litmus test for this year. And then the rest of the org will hear about it next week in terms of the much more precise changes that are coming forth. That's how you eliminate that trough, or you bring it up. There will always be some trough, right? That's just natural change, but we need to get much better about that. Speaking about change, no tech conference would be complete without talking about AI. Now, I have mixed feelings about AI. Actually, for this slide, I asked Gemini to create an image of what does Kaluza look like in an AI future. And I think this is pretty representative of how I feel about AI. It's still a little bit weird. Like it kind of pulled the Kaluza logo, but not exactly. It added the word energy onto the end. I didn't tell it to do that. What's this crystal ball thing? But at the same time, I can see where this is going, right? I can see how this is going to get better and how it's actually going to get useful in the future. And I'm not alone in that. You talk to some people and they think the whole thing is hype. It's a solution in search of a problem. You talk to others, like folks at Klarna, and they're getting rid of their CRM system and their HR system because they're applying AI agents to do the job of what those applications were doing before. We'll see how successful they are. I hope they're successful, but it's also a threat, isn't it? Because if they're able to get rid of those systems of record, what's to say that a billing and payment system or a customer care system or a commerce system can't be eliminated by AI agents in the future? I think it's going to take a little bit longer than some people think, but that is something that we need to stay on top of, and we need to get in front of that before competitors do. And so, how do we do that? How do we know like how much of this is hype and how much of it is real? It's one thing to go on Twitter or Blue Sky, or I don't know what social media people use these days. I don't really use it, and watch a vibe coding video, right? My daughter's actually vibe coding on Cursor at school, and it's really cool. It's really cool what she's able to do. But how much of that actually applies to an enterprise-grade software company and what we do? And the real answer is, we're not sure. But there's only one way to find out, and that's to invest and experiment. And so today, we're announcing AI Catalyzers, which will be 4 roles that will be posted next month in August across 4 different areas: discovery, engineering and development, testing, document and knowledge access. So the only way to find out is to actually invest. And today, a lot of this is happening from the side of our desk. Yes, we're using Copilot. Yes, we're using some AI tools. I think we're using some really cool AI tools in pre-sales that are showing effective in responding to RFPs. But as part of our core software development lifecycle, we are going to invest in this, and we're going to have 4 people who are working with the teams to see how do these new tools perform in these 4 categories. And that's just, and there's going to be budget behind this. So each of these 4 people is going to have a budget of $50,000 to be able to experiment with new tools, but also the change effort to then implement that and teach others about what they're learning. And so you'll see that next month in August, and really looking forward to who applies for that and what these AI Catalyzers bring to the table.
And how we deploy AI isn't just about our own productivity. It's about making sure that we remain relevant in an increasingly AI-native world that is going to bring new competitors into our space. Also, through building an AI-enabled features into our platform and our products, we can leverage it to have an even greater impact. From agent assistance, as you've seen today, to the optimization of full portfolios of devices, the potential is huge. Now, earlier today, I talked about the huge demand increase that AI is going to be creating. So 10% increase in demand for electricity. Well, if deployed in the right way, AI can play a significant role in actually solving for that. So it can really accelerate the transition. So I'm really excited to be able to see what we can do to improve how we work, and also to improve our products too. So that brings me back to our mission. So today, we've covered the global dynamics unfolding around us and the accelerating energy trilemma. We've covered how our platform has a huge role to play in solving these challenges. We've shown that achieving our mission takes both impact and it takes scale. And scale is really important. It's what drives revenue. So that's revenue to keep Kaluza running and building out our solutions. Revenue to enter new markets and to continue investing in innovation. So our mission isn't just the right thing to do, it's the pathway to building a valuable business we can all be proud of creating. So our mission also takes having a clear plan. And there's one final element. Achieving our mission also takes belief. Belief in the value of our mission and belief that collectively we can achieve it. More strongly than ever before, I believe in our mission, and I believe in our ability to achieve it. We've collectively achieved milestones that we previously thought were out of our reach. So completing the SSC migration, delivering the capability to support pay-as-you-go customers in order to complete the OVO migration, delivering localization for OVO Energy Australia in less than a year, and then even setting up a team of over 100 people in Melbourne, the other side of the world. And if you need any more proof points to believe in, just look at everyone around you today. Listen to all of the panels, the presentations, and the value awards, and see just what a truly talented, passionate, and committed team we are all part of. And just like our values say, we're on a mission. We build together. And Kaluza, we get it done.
Say you're on a revolution, no. We all wanna change the world.
And we please hear it. Come on, big time. Let's hear it. You see Mel and Neil. Amazing. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Thank you. Now fill the time while I change to your script, Mary. Nobody's inside voice. Okay. Wow, Kaluza. Look what you did. Look what you're doing. Global. We're hearing from, all the countries, all the growth, the advances, the now, the next. One of the slides that I get very excited about is the client slide, seeing them all on there. And we know time and time again, hearing from you firsthand or surveys, you love hearing from the clients, whatever area that you work in. So I am delighted, and I think we are set up now to say we have a very special guest, and joining our CCO on stage, Travers, Marion from ENGIE, VP of Innovation and Marketing. Please, massive round of applause.
Right. Good morning, conference. Thank you very much for that introduction and welcome, Mary. And I deep welcome and thanks for Marion joining us this morning for this intimate fireside chat in front of a few hundred Kaluzians.
Very intimate.
Very intimate, absolutely indeed. Look, the idea of this session really is to get to know Marion, get to know ENGIE, get to know the kind of story behind what's going on within the relationship, the partnership, if you like. So let me start with, beyond a welcome, a little bit of getting to know yourself, Marion. A little bit about the role that you have, the background that you have, both ENGIE and before. So maybe let's kick off with say hi to Kaluza.
Yes, first, thank you so much for having me. I'm really happy to be there. Just some words. So first, I'm a mother of 3 children, and that's what worries my brain most of the time. And when I'm not doing that, I'm responsible for marketing at ENGIE, mainly for the B2C markets. We'll come back maybe a bit on that. And I've handled multiple roles in marketing, mainly in different companies. I joined ENGIE in 2018, but it feels like a whole lifetime now. And it feels like home, taking care of decarbonization of our customers. And that's really one of my passions, and so it's also my job, so I'm very lucky.
So I love the fact that coming from a marketing background and kind of passionate about energy transformation, somehow, in this particular part of it, you've ended up being a program manager. I mean, we met back in February the 12th, right, was the first time that we met, half-day session. ENGIE kind of described the strategic activity that they wanted to go through, but also you've ended up being the program director for the program up until this point as well. So tell us a little about how that came about in terms of the transition from marketing into program director. And I know you're going back to the marketing as well, but
so I think the idea behind was that to be able to lead such a transformation into an old organization, because we are an incumbent in France, so we are not that much of a tech company, even though you'll see we have a lot of very nice things inside of ENGIE, but we're still a big, old energy company at some point. And so we needed to make sure that we would be able to transform ourselves so as to be able to serve the customers of tomorrow. And as you know very well, the market is changing so much that what our customers will need in 10 years has nothing to do with what we give them today. So that understanding of the customers and what we need to do for them so as to stay a company that customers will want to buy from was something really important.
Okay, and maybe we can get a little bit more into the detail of the strategic imperatives, because as an organization, I mean, you've published a variety of the strategic imperatives around transformation, technological transformation, and kind of the 4.0 style things. But maybe just expand out the strategic intents, because then we'll kind of get, I guess, to technology selections that go with that and how the technology is going to support. But just what are the strategic imperatives for ENGIE across all of the markets? Because there's different markets as well.
So maybe I'll just take a step back and begin a bit with ENGIE. So we are an international company. We operate in 31 countries. We are 100K people working for ENGIE. We call ourselves transition makers. And the company has really operated a shift over the 10 to 5 last years, really focusing on decarbonization, doing that through 4 branch of activities. One branch is the electric power networks. We used to be very big in gas network, and we decided to invest a lot in power networks, mostly in Latin America, but also a bit in Europe. Then one part of it is about building renewable assets, so windmills, solar farms, and very big ones for the grids. Another activity is called local energy infrastructure. That's where I came from just before we met. So it's about helping cities and big companies to decarbonize their activities. So like building district heating and cooling in cities, so as to offer decarbonized heating and cooling, which is quite important nowadays. But also big, for example, big pulp and papers company. They are emitting a lot of CO2 today because they need a lot of heat for their activities. And that heat is provided through mainly big gas boilers. And if you are able to transform those with wood chip boilers, for example, then you emit a lot less. So it's much better for the environment. And so the 4th branch is the one in which I sit now. It's called supply and energy management. And so it handles all the midstreams, so buying and selling energy, all kinds of energy, but mainly gas and power, and selling those energy to either B2B or B2C customers. For B2B customers, we operate in 11 countries, and for B2C, we operate in 6 countries. And so for that part, we really are facing the transformation of the markets that link to decarbonization. So it's mainly driven in Europe, but we see that also in the UK and the US, obviously, and even in Asia with different patterns. So you have governments asking and enforcing laws so as to switch the markets from gas to power. And as ENGIE, we are a former incumbent of the gas market. So a lot of the energy we sell to our customers is gas. So obviously, we are building a lot of biogas facilities so as to be able to source for our customers as much biogas as we can. But, I mean, decarbonized gas, they are really important, but they are still quite expensive. And so for the moment, the cheapest way to make energy transition affordable is really to work around the power. And so we're really undergoing that switch of our customer portfolios. And it can be huge. Maybe to give you an example of the 6 countries where we operate. In Belgium, we are the incumbent in both power and gas. So we have 45% market share in those 2 energies. So there, I mean, the transition is complicated because it's a story of maybe stopping growing, because when a contract in gas disappears, there is not another one that appears in power. Everybody has already got power. So if it's a story of having less customers, so increasing the value. When we're talking France, it's a much bigger country, so we have more contracts, but we have like a 55% market share in gas and only a 15% market share in power. And on that market, the one that has 70% market share is the incumbent in power. It's called EDF. It's a very big company with a lot of support from the state, because it's state-owned. And so it's a big fight that we have to fight. And for that, we really need to reinvent ourselves, to reinvent the offers. And as you know, the offers in power, they are very different from the offers in gas, because there is this matter of the fact that it's not easy to stock It's not easy I mean, you have batteries, but batteries are very expensive. And so the prices are much more volatile. And then this is a complete new story that we have to write with our customers. How can we help them to decrease their consumption, decrease their bill, because that's what they see at the end of the month. It's a bill, it's not the consumption. You cannot see power consumption. And how can we help them understand what are the cost drivers of that bill? And it's really complicated because, as I told you, don't see the power passing by. It's not like when you consume water, where you see the water flowing. Here you don't see it. So why does it consume more, for example, to heat when the temperature decreased by 3 degrees? You don't know that. You don't know about how your house is not well isolated or so on.
So that is, I mean, clearly dealing with a whole host of complexities, not least of which the legacy business, if you like, having come out of gas. And I hear Catherine, your CEO, kind of eloquently summarizes that in that it's a transition from molecules to electrons. But that's everything, right? It's basically going, you need to change customer behaviors, you need to change generation mix. I mean, so culturally, how does that feel in energy at the moment? Because that is, the scale of transformation that's going on must have a cultural effect within the organization. So I'm interested in kind of cultural internals, and then we're going to get a little bit onto, so what does that mean from a technology perspective? But culturally, how is it feeling in the firm?
So culturally, that's very interesting. So I told you I joined ENGIE in 2018, and when I joined, I think that this mental transformation hadn't already happened in the teams.
Yeah.
The management, it was the CEO was called Isabelle Kocher at that time. They had already begun that transformation in the policies, in the investment. But when you talked to people working in the company, they would always, defend a lot gas. Like if trying to grow in power was saying something bad about gas, which were their history. And so that was a kind of feeling, me coming from outside and stating the facts. I mean, those were facts, and just stating the facts, I felt that I attacked them a bit,
Yeah, internally, if you've spent 20 years, 30 years in an organization believing in a product, effectively to be told the product is the wrong product, and you shouldn't be in this market, I mean, that is undoubtedly challenging for people.
It is. And let me tell you, I think that one thing changed a lot is that the manager of the B2C business at that time decided that instead of just selling power, we would only sell green power in the big countries. Right. And that we would do that taking in our pockets, meaning not implementing a supra cost to the customers. And the fact that very rapidly we became the biggest portfolio in green power on B2C customers, it gave a pride to our people, knowing that we were bigger than the big old EDF in green power. And since that time, now it's not even a question. We still have, like for example, in France, much more customers in gas, but we know that your future lies in power, and so there's no question.
So a cultural transformation has happened. You have to support that with a technology transformation as well, or at least there's an expectation that you support that with a technology transformation. So let's, I guess, talk a little bit about technologically what's happening, what's present in ENGIE at the moment, and what is manifesting a requirement to change the technology. And I guess that's a big picture in terms of, what are the problems that you're facing and what are the solutions that you think you need. And then a little bit about the selection process. How have you effectively decided to partner with Kaluza?
Yeah. So it's a long story. But maybe where it began, it's like, so we are operating today so for the partnership that we have, we are talking 3 countries out of the 6 countries of B2C. So we're talking France and Belgium, where we have the biggest portfolios, and we're talking Australia, and for different reasons. So France and Belgium, we operate under SAP plus Salesforce. And in Australia, we operate under a very bad system, very costly. So it's not really the same technological stack at the beginning. But it's the same problematic, meaning that today we have systems that are old, very old, where, for example, to develop a new kind of offer, you would need if it's a simple offer, between 6 to 12 months. And if it's a pretty complicated offer where you have to go into the details of pricing that would have different layers, then it will take up to 18 months, 2 years.
Wow.
And you're not, imagine my life. And
Yeah,
then,
marketing director, I want to launch a new product. You can do that in a year and a half. Okay.
Yeah. And that's, I mean, those are the ones that are prioritized because all the ideas, you've known me a little now,
Yeah.
all the ideas, the great ideas that I have to cut at least 3/4 of those to concentrate on the ones that will be able to get out. So this was already a problematic. It's been for years. Now the system is dying. It's not possible to handle it anymore. And so over the last 3 years, we had undergone a journey to change the systems. And 3 years ago, more modern digital platforms were not as widespread as they are now. So at that time, we looked into Power Cloud. And it didn't match during the crisis. They had a lot of problems, so we had to erase, come back. And so then was the choice between, do we want to redo that system, old system, but in new, so building a new SAP plus a new Salesforce, or do we want to look at something else? And at that point, we looked into new solutions. Not with Kaluza.
I think most of them probably know, not with Kaluza initially.
But
we like the story.
And I mean, the benefits we were looking at were manifold, but maybe let me begin with one, is when you operate under systems that are multiple, like SAP plus Salesforce, then you end up having a lot of problematics, operational problematic, billing problematic, then customer problematic, that are linked with the fact that your data has to flow through so many different systems that each time it goes from one system to another, you have a data flux that you have to monitor, to correct all the time. And so this is a real problematic. And so we've developed a real capacity to look at everything. I mean, you cannot imagine the number of KPIs that we are following over the flow of data. So we're very good to look at all of this. But nevertheless, each time you want to develop something new, you need to redevelop all those controls, and it's really painful. So we wanted a system that would be more integrated. Today, also, the access to data is very complex because it lies in many different systems. The data models may also be different from one system to another, so you have to reconciliate all of that. So that's another hassle that we wanted to get rid of. So a quick access to data, and data that would be very precise and that could be used also by all types of internal customers. So as of today, for example, to tell you, in France, the data team, it's like 50 people. Just because you need to store everything to do that many controls. And the people in the company, the marketeers, for example, they cannot directly go into the system to fetch for the data they need because it's too complicated. So we wanted also to get a lot of simplicity out of it. And then, obviously, those are the way we want to do things. But when you look at the KPIs we want to achieve, so we want to be able to launch new offers much, much, much faster. And we want to be able to have the best customer service that can exist in all the countries where we operate. And to do so, you need to have less problems and to empower your customer agents so that they can directly fix most of the problematics. Today, we have to split the problems, so agents are organized by type of problems, because it's too complicated to go into a first-time fix.
So if we take a few of those pieces out, right? So data enablement, data first, data rich, data real time, universal agents as opposed to kind of task-orientated agents, and the speed of innovation sound like kind of key characteristics. Now, I mean, arguably, there are others that would say they have technology to do that as well. So what made Kaluza's technology stand out above?
So when we looked at the market 3 years ago, Kaluza already was one of the solutions that was looked at, but appeared not to be complete enough, especially on the CRM parts. And I think that what's changed is that when we re-looked at the market, we saw that you had been doing tremendous progress on the solution, and it was now much more complete and comprehensive, and that it would allow us to build around the Kaluza solution for CRM and billing some new tools that would allow us to operate our business how we want to operate it.
And that does, well, obviously we've been deeply engaged in this process, but that kind of being able to work around the platform as well, so the API endpoints, so that you can augment it with other things that you want to do, has always been a key part, I guess, of our discussions around flexibility in the technology. It's not rigid, but it's not so flexible that you have to be building everything yourself, right? So,
yeah, true. And it's also the fact, and we've been, for those with whom we've had the pleasure to work, you've been discovering how we operate, but we are, especially in France, we are doing a lot of prospect management.
Yeah.
And so we are pretty good at, doing that PRM, prospect relationship management stuff, with a lot of campaigns that can go through very different systems. And so that's something we want to keep. So we wanted to be able to plug those systems and to make the global NG system completely efficient.
So it all sounds great, but there's always difficulties, or there will be difficulties, whether or not that's, the program as it's deployed, or the technology, or internal activity with NG, etc. So what things are you concerned about?
So I'm a very, very optimistic person. So I tend to look at...
There's optimism on the stage up here. It's probably the wrong people to be asking, what should we be worried about? It's like, everything's going to be brilliant.
Yeah, because for me, it's not concerning. It's things that we haven't solved yet.
Yeah.
But so I'd say one of the first thing, and it lies with a global, difference between the fact that we are huge and you are not that huge.
Yeah.
And so...
We're all here, or at least the vast majority of us are here, and those that aren't are behind the camera at the back.
So, but see, it's true that in that lies a lot of the complexity that we will have to solve. It's true for example, the offers that we are proposing to our customers. And maybe let me take just 2 steps back, but you need to know that over those 6 countries that we are operating at NG B2C, they used to be completely free and do anything they wanted in their own system. And what we want to do also with that project is reuniting the IT system of the 3 countries that we will operate under the new system. And so that transformation also lies not only in having a new system, but also in operating those 3 countries in a much more concentrated manner than it used to be. It doesn't mean that we will do all the same things in all the 3 countries, but it does mean that we want to operate under what we call a core model of building block of offers, of way to operate the business, and so on. So that complexity that we have today, it's all the more important, and obviously we're trying to simplifying, but what we're trying to do is take 3 countries, big countries, with teams, with habits, with a lot of history, and plug them into one system. Let's put it very simply like that. And so the complexity lies also in that, and in the fact that you, as a new company, Kaluza has to face today the 3 systems and the willingness of the management of the 3 countries to reunite them. But we are doing the 2 things in the same time, and I think that's one of the complexity that will be the most difficult to handle. Not difficult in terms of we don't know how to do, but difficult in terms of it's a real cultural and profound transformation for the people.
I think Kaluza would recognise the language of the core model in the way that we describe the global platform. So and there is complexity in building something that is applicable everywhere. Right? And the reason that the reason that countries went off and did their own things is because it's kind of perceived as more straightforward historically.
Yeah.
So there is inevitably challenge in that simple premise of a core model or a global model as we describe it, but there is complexity in building it. So I think we share exactly the same narrative and intent, and therefore the complexity to get there.
And maybe also in recognizing what needs to be in the core model, and there are things that need to be done at the level of the country because it's more efficient, because it's culturally obligatory, because there are legal stuff that would oblige to do so. So the complexity lies in building the common, but also knowing what can be common and what cannot.
And I think for Kaluza at least, this part of this conversation shows why we think NG is such a brilliant partner at this point as well, because those things are, well, we do, because those strategies are completely aligned. I guess as we start to round off the session, what does success look like? And the obvious answer, of course, is, well, it's safely deployed and it's live on production. But more broad than that, what does it look like for NG in the longer term? What does success mean?
So there is the very pragmatical answer. So success looks like we have this system operating with the core model clearly defined, the business KPIs looking good in terms of customer satisfaction, billing accuracy, number of new customers entering our offers. And I mean, this is obvious, so you could have written it without me coming on stage. So maybe I'll state that success will lie in our common ability to build that together, because it's something that we often stated in our different committees, but also in the workshops that we had together, is that what we are building is the NG of tomorrow, and it will be fueled out of Kaluza intelligence. And I mean, this is really a common story. It's a real partnership, true partnership, and one that is much more profound than any that we've ever built with our current operating systems, because we were used to working ourselves in those systems. Here, we're willing to build a partnership. We're talking 10 years working together, and I mean, it's almost as engaging as getting married. I mean, when I see all the papers, it reminds me of my marriage 10 years, like 20 years ago, but it's kind of the same process if you look at it. So I think that success will lie in my successor coming back here in 10 years and looking at everything we did successfully together.
I think that's a key point as well. I mean, we're basically shepherds for these organisations as we move them through, right? You have to leave them in a better state than you find them, and that's a key aspect here. I guess on behalf of NG, what message might you have for Kaluza? You have an opportunity, you have a stage, you have the entire company in front of us. So what messages would you have for Kaluza?
So maybe there is a first one, which is thank you to all the people with whom we've been working. It's not a walk in the park, but up to now, working with you has been a real pleasure. And I'm talking really, I'm the voice of all the people you've been workshopping with. They all said, okay, we like the transparency so much, the ability to say, okay, this we don't know, this we will build, this is going to be more complicated. And I think that, I mean, to come back to my image of the marriage, but you need to know before, it's better than after. So I think that this is really paving the ground for great collaboration. And so the first message would really be thank you for that. And so thank you for being who you are with your culture of modesty. I think it's really important for us. The second one will be, the platform is great from what we've seen, but there is still a lot to be built. And so if we want to operate like the millions, tens of millions of customers of NG, there is a long working list that you'll need to go on building. So I'm sure you're all thrilled about that, but I hope you are. but I mean, it's not done. I mean,
it is not done. Arguably, they're never done, but it's not done. Absolutely.
So that's maybe one of our concerns right now.
Yeah.
And then maybe another message is, as I told you, we're from very different backgrounds, and I think we can all learn from each other. So please help us be more simple. Don't hesitate to voice out when you believe that sometimes I mean, there are so many engineers in NG from very, very nice engineer school, but sometimes we like to elaborate a bit the reflection. So if you believe that we are over-elaborating some reflections, don't hesitate to say. And in the meantime, if we believe that you're going to take maybe some shortcuts so as to make sure that we get there, but not with the level of quality that we would await for our very big database, then we will make sure to tell you as well.
Thank you. I think the analogy of marriage is a good one, right? It is a long-term relationship. There are short-term things that are immediate and in front of you and you need to address, but you always have the bigger picture in mind, and you always have to be transparent and honest and direct and call things out where they need to be called out. But Marion, thank you very much for spending the morning with us. We have really appreciated it. Kaluza, give Marion a big thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I think I'm handing back to Mary, over to you.
Yes, you are.
Thank you, Marion.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh, Kaluza, what an honour to have our customer here with us and giving this feedback. And I think some of the words that stood for me there, a profound transformation. That is an incredible thing for us to be able to contribute to. Also, congratulations on the wedding. I didn't know we'd all committed to that, but you know, honeymoon. So where are we now? Well, you've all been contributing fantastically. Thank you so much for your round of applause throughout. Now we have a little break. So we're going to step outside. I'll just quickly check I give you the right information for this one. So a short break, and then we're going to come back to a panel with the executive team, which is mysteriously titled A Postcard from the Future. So yes, 30 minutes, please. So head outside. You'll see all the bits and bobs there from where you were this morning, but please do be back ready for the next session. Thank you.
What we're living in, let me tell ya. Yeah, it's a world that man can eat at all. When things are big, that should be small. Who can tell what magic spells we'll be doing for